All right, Maxi, how you doing?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
I'm phenomenal. This is
Excellent.
our, in all honesty, this is our second time around after I misplaced the first time.
Yeah, round two.
It was round two,
So it'll be, yeah,
more
the first
refined,
one was a
hopefully.
more refined. Yeah, but still the same kind of stream of consciousness
Yeah,
that came with the first one.
yeah. So we met through your parents. I worked with your mom for I don't know, about a year or so, and she decided to be a rabbi and give up, conventionalness.
Right.
And you came, I worked at a dealership at the time. You bought a car for me, then you bought another one, and then you took that one, went across country with it. And that's the nature of this interview, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You became my car dealer after my mom had recommended that I uh, go buy a car from her friend Tony, who she worked with
Yeah.
at, at your festival.
My Subaru place.
Yeah.
So, you know, what did you do and how did you go about doing it? I'm very curious about what your train of thought was to get you from little old Charlottesville, Virginia to out west.
Well, I had been wanting to leave for a while, honestly, and I just couldn't find a good enough excuse for years. It just was too hard for me to fully commit to leaving my hometown because I was so comfortable there. And I honestly do think it took March 2020, the start of our quarantine, to give me the extra push that I needed to realize that I wanted to go out and start seeing the world, because I had already made up my mind about wanting to be a forest ranger somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but I hadn't seen enough of the United States, and I needed to get out of Virginia in order to see what lay before me. And I felt that driving through all of it and finding places to camp inside of the national parks was the
Mm-hmm.
best way to see it up close and personal. And being a solo adventurer was um, a scary concept at first.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it was scarier for my parents, but I always shared my location with them and called them every single day if we could FaceTime, if I had the reception for it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So to recap for people that don't know, what you did was take a base model Outback, put a teardrop camper on the back that's metal, which is like basically only big enough for like one person, really, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and it's not that, it's rather than the teardrop trailer, it's a pop-up
Okay.
trailer,
Okay. Pop up.
which, yeah, and rather than being it's like the teardrop in that it's all metal.
Okay.
So rather than a canvas pop-up, it's an A-liner, which
Okay.
is all metal and feels really safe for the most part.
Interesting. So you took the Outback and you left Charlottesville. And where did you go first? What did you do first? Like, how did you come up with the idea? Like, you wanted to explore, great, but did you just kind of wing where you were going to go, or did you have kind of an idea of, okay, I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to go here, I want to go there?
Well, I think as part of trying to make my parents a little less nervous, I told them that I would go up to my grandparents to celebrate my birthday, which was it was September 1st in
Okay.
2020.
Okay.
So I was there by then. I drove my camper to New York from Virginia,
Okay.
visited my grandparents,
What part of
and
New York?
they're in Queensbury, which is kind of like Lake George.
Okay.
Uh, it's a nice part of New York. It's
Nice.
close to the Adirondack.
Nice. I don't
Yeah.
know where that is, but I don't know anything, so it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, New England's a really pretty part of the country too. I had thought about moving to Vermont to go to school at UVM because Burlington's really cool and they have that mall that's made by the same guy who made our downtown mall in Charlottesville.
No way.
Yeah, they've got a very similar looking, totally bricked ground layout of
That's cool.
yeah, and the bricks are placed the same way and everything, and some of the fountain sculptures there are the same.
I love Stanton's downtown mall. You ever been to Stanton's?
Oh, Stanton is so cute. I love all of those small towns. And
I'm gonna move there soon. I really am.
oh, really?
Yeah, they
You
got a
should.
Shakespeare Center I go to like 2-3 times a year. It's like $60 a ticket.
Oh my gosh.
Ridiculous.
Wow,
But I love it.
Shakespeare.
It's literally one of the best productions in the state, if not, parts of the country, really.
Yeah,
I
that
digress.
surprises me that that's there. That's pretty awesome.
It's phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
it's a Blackfriar Theater in Stanton, and it's like, I mean, it's a very unique experience.
Right.
There's no theatrics. It's just actors on stage. They keep the lights on the whole time. They do music intermediate through the different plays and such. They incorporate music. They dress themselves up in modern attire.
That's
It's
so awesome.
for a nerd like me, it's like heaven on earth. It really is.
The best of both worlds.
Yes. Okay. So you take a metal pop-up trailer across the country. What are your like top 3 parks that you loved, that you just find undescribable and people have to visit?
Well, I had to head up towards Yellowstone when I first crossed the country after New York. I landed in Colorado, which is my first part really of the Rockies to explore. And it's really pretty out there. And there were a lot of national forests that I went to.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got into Wyoming, cowboy country, and I went straight up into Yellowstone and spent a few days there. That's got to be an amazing park. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me that that's one of their top 3 at least.
I went when I was about 15 with my grandpa and my mom, and I haven't forgotten it since, and I've wanted to go back since, and I've read several books about it since.
Right.
Recently, one just a couple weeks ago about the history of the park and all that, and it makes me really want to go back.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back and spend more time there. Like, I'd get out of my car and enjoy a lot of views, but I didn't do a whole lot of hiking because that was my very first like really big national park that I had gotten to as a solo traveler, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to be a solo hiker. So I had to look into finding people to hike with before I could have the courage to go do it in those national parks. But I got to a lot of really great spots.
Do you see the moose or the grizzlies?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Moose are huge. People don't know.
They're giant.
They're huge.
They are behemoths.
They're like 12 feet tall.
Yeah, it's crazy. My first couple times seeing them was in the middle of the night, which is like even more intense.
My God.
Because you first see their eyes and then you get close enough with your headlights and see the entire moose. You're like, wow, that creature is godlike.
Yeah.
Massiveness.
It's like something Studio Ghibli would have done, Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, exactly. Or a giant Totoro.
Yeah, exactly. So did you see any bison when you were there? Oh, of course you did.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Better question. Did any bison come close to your camper when you were sitting in the middle of nowhere sleeping?
That's a good question. I think I might have seen some in the distance because there are so many times where I've been in spots where I've felt the presence of animals being near me, and then I look out and I do see glowing eyes, but they're not that close to me. So, because I'm not going to go out in my camper and cause a scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather just look at it through there. And I usually bring my binoculars inside and like have my window open so I can look out.
Wow.
And right before it's bedtime anyway.
Have you had any bear instances where a curious bear was like smelling your food and he was like circling your camp?
Ooh, man. No, I haven't run into any bears since I've been doing this. And I think that's for the best. I mean, they've got to be left alone, but also, they have to be afraid of us at the same time. I think I've seen a few out of my car while driving, but not while I was camping. And maybe again, I feel like I might have felt the presence of one. So there might have been a time when I saw glowing eyes and it was a bear and I didn't realize it.
The last 3 times I've been in the woods for any extended amount of time, I've ran into bears.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
Especially when you're backpacking, and camping
tent.
that way. Yeah, they want to check you out.
They want your food. They don't want you. Yeah. You're too much effort. Yeah, they want your food.
Yeah, they want your food.
Yeah,
you have to hide your food every time that you go to sleep. So it's convenient having, 2 metal vehicles. I've got my Subaru, which is great. And then the camper, I can have a little bit of food in there, have my whole dinner, maybe clean up after myself, but usually I'll just fall asleep.
So what was your second favorite national park that you visited while you were on your adventures?
I mean, honestly, it was just all the way up. It had to be, the Mount Tetons. The Tetons were great.
Tell me all about it. I want to know. I'm curious and envious at the same time.
They do have
both equally.
Actually, I think I might have to change my answer. Okay. My second favorite park would probably have to be Bryce Canyon.
Okay.
The canyons are awesome down there. That and Zion are awesome. And all of the small parks in between, there's so much adventuring to be had. I like to free climb rocks pretty often. If I'm going to be doing any hiking, then it's off of the road somewhere. And I'll know that there are people everywhere nearby rock climbing themselves. But I like to go the route less traveled and just kind of climb with my bare hands to some pretty cool places.
That's not going to freak your parents out at all when they hear this.
Yeah, well, they've seen some footage and I think they've got an idea that I had to get up there somehow.
That is phenomenal. So the biggest curiosity for me that I want to know about this experience for you is almost everybody I've known that have traveled around the United States and kind of done, a big caravan to see the States is older people, retired people. They get in an RV and they travel and they go and they're always talk about it in retrospect of, oh yeah, I saw this and I saw this, but they worked for 35 years to get there, right? 30 years, 35 years. So for 30 years, they basically had no idea what the United States was all about. I mean, they read about it, they heard about it, they may have went here, they may have went there, but they really didn't know. I mean, you have a pretty good grasp of what the States are like because you've been there and you've done that.
Right. I'm wise for my age.
Yeah. What is that like for you, a perspective wise at a young age? And how do you think that's going to affect the way that you live your life going forward?
Right. That's good. That's something that's similar to what I was thinking earlier today was, how much desire I have to show people this lifestyle, and I think that's probably part of, I'm not sure if we have a purpose, but, if I had one, at least my passion would be to show people what is out there. and that there is a way to have a different perspective on life, because the reality that we're used to is living in our houses and getting up and going to work because, we go to work because we love what we do, or,
I mean,
what we
you'd
have
think.
to come home to, you'd think.
Yeah.
And, I guess it can be thought of as taking a break from reality to go on a vacation or a road trip across the states like that. But I think it's an important part of being able to see the bigger picture in life, which is just that nothing really matters that much, as we're convinced when we are in the middle of reality.
I have a story for you.
Shoot.
So I forget if it was 17 or 18. I don't know. I'm terrible with numbers, but I decided to hike the extent of Shenandoah. So from one end up to the other, so Rockfish Gap up to Front Royal, or Front Royal to Rockfish Gap, rather, was the way I did it. And along the way, about halfway through, I met two British kids. And when I say kids, they were like 18, 19 years old. So I was 3 days into this 105-mile hike. And honestly, I was not prepared. It was my first time doing any overnight hiking of any real consequence anyway. I mean, I'd done like one night and then hiked out, but I was 3 days. I was wet. I was miserable. I was not having it. I was like done. I saw this shelter. So along the Appalachian Trail, you have shelters that you can go to. And this particular one had a fireplace. And I got there at like 2 p.m. and I could have kept hiking, but I was like, no, I'm just going to build a fire. And everything was wet. So I had bug spray that my dad left me because he hiked with me the day before. So I decided I was going to take this bug spray, start a fire. So long story short, these two British kids come out of nowhere and they're like, bloke, you have a fire. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Yay. And they just like enjoy this fire I made with this bug spray that's probably killing us all.
Yeah.
And anyway, so they tell me all about what they're doing. So this is what these kids are doing. So apparently in, a lot of European countries, including Great Britain, it is customary for you to take a break after high school to do something adventurous or like something to discover yourself before you enter college, which is obviously not something we do here in the States.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. And they were telling me all about it, of how, they're going to hike the Appalachian Trail and then they're going to go back and they already have their scholarships. They already have jobs lined up and that sort of stuff. And I was like, wow, that's crazy because nobody has that here. Nobody. I mean, yeah. I've met a lot of people. Nobody has that here.
It's good that that's a part of their academic discipline, that makes so much sense to like throw that in there. Like you've got to go survive on your own.
Yeah. How many people know what they want to do at 19, 20 years old for the rest of their life?
Yeah, exactly. You've got to be able to spend a good chunk of time with just yourself to figure out what it is that you want. Because a lot of us, I remember just rolling over in turmoil over what I wanted for, all of 18 through being 24. It was driving me crazy. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, Charlottesville will do that to you too.
Oh God, tell me about it. I mean, geez. Yeah, working for professors or, doing projects through UVA and doing some community college classes and working at restaurants. I was just so over all of that.
So you decided to do it. And right now, memory serves me correct, you're kind of stationary, right?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I got here back in July of 2021, but then actually headed down south into California, and I had just spent the last 6 months there in Santa Cruz. And so But since then, I've been living back in Portland. I came all the way back up with my trailer again.
Nice.
Just to mostly stay stationary and build some clientele with my dog walking business for a bit, and also just to sit out the winter. Santa Cruz was a great place to hang out during the summer and to walk people's dogs too. It was awesome.
Sounds like it. Did you ever miss home when you were out and about? Did you have a problem staying present in the moment and like worrying about like people's opinions or all that kind of noise? Did you have a problem sorting that out in your mental state?
Absolutely. I was constantly worried about drama that didn't exist really, that I was thinking was probably going on back home. You know, that kept revisiting me. It was like intrusive thinking.
Yeah.
But, you know, you've got to just get over those old reoccurring thoughts. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not serving you. And,
Yeah.
you know, I would find that every time I would take a break from exploring, I was pretty susceptible to falling back to thinking about those sorts of things.
Mm.
So it's definitely important to do forms of self-therapy when you've been isolated like this for so long. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate because of the effects of COVID.
Yeah, for sure. Because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, in a way, like, I'm glad that it's maybe forced people to see things differently and to get a new perspective on what to be doing with their time, I guess, because you never know when things are going to shut down for this long.
It's true.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest takeaways for you from seeing the States? I mean, I always think of, I've had the privilege of living outside of the States for a little bit of time. And you kind of see when you live in a place that's not the States, and that's especially much smaller than the States. Like for me, it was the Marshall Islands. It was tiny, it was small. Their culture is the same. I mean, you go to one place, it's the same. But here, I mean, the difference between North Carolina and South Carolina is more of a difference than people would think. The difference between Virginia and West Virginia is way different than people would think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So for you in traveling, what has been your relationships with people that you've come across? Like on any spectrum you want to pick from, like what is the biggest things you've noticed in the difference in the subcultures here in America?
Honestly, I've seen a fine blend of all kinds of people that you could find throughout the States. California and Oregon have so far been, I think, the best examples of states that are the most versatile in the types of people that they have, you know, because you've got a lot of liberals here in Oregon, for example, but then a lot of people that are not and complain about them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and another thing I've noticed is that everywhere that I go and talk to people and tell them I'm not from here, they'll tell me something negative about how people are from that place, which is kind of funny because it just reminds me how head to head a lot of us citizens are with each other when, you know, I'm one of those people who thinks that it's more important that we have a class war, really, at this point, than we do a civil war as citizens, being the 99%.
No, you're not incorrect, for sure. Would you have you found people to be you know, I find a disconnect between when I watch the news and when I interact with people. I personally find people to be overwhelmingly helpful and nice, but it's easy for me to say that. because nobody is really going to bother me. First off, I got no money at all. So, ain't nothing there. I mean, and I can like charm my way out of most anything. So I don't have really any much of dangers, but I'm curious to know like what your experiences have been with people and if they've been mostly positive.
Yeah, there have been a lot of assumptions before. Like people will drive up to my trailer, for instance, when I'm parked at a rest stop or a Walmart, just to check out the trailer, because that's a good opportunity for it to stand out. And a lot of people get interested and stop by. And there have been a few times, but most recently I remember some guy drove up and said, "Oh, hi, I like that, I'm a veteran." And as he was driving off, he said, "Okay, you and your husband have a good one." Like, just assumed that I had someone with me. So, it's like, if I'm not given the opportunity, I won't mention that I'm by myself, I guess.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Complete 100% sense.
Yeah, because people will worry about you being a female solo traveler. But I reassure almost everyone that asks. I'm like, "Oh, don't worry. I talk to my parents every day." I have ways of showing them exactly where I am and all of that.
That's good. Have you found, through hikers like the Pacific Northwest Trail or the Appalachian Trail, people talk about, I'm a nerd, so of course, I've read all this stuff. People have talked about something along the lines of trail magic. In other words, like if you don't have something, if you're running out of food or whatever, you'll magically find it on the trail, like for free. People will just give it to you. Have you ran into instances like that while traveling the United States in the West?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when, well, there was a time that I went into a laundromat and was talking to somebody about what I was doing while they were watching the news, and they actually gave me a really high-powered lantern, which was nice, and a knife.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you find it like, you watch the news, obviously, like the marketing ploy of the news is everything is negative because that's going to get your attention.
Yeah, definitely.
If you see like there's a train wreck, you're going to stop and watch. If you see the train operating smoothly, you're not going to stop and watch.
Yeah.
Because that's commonplace. That's every day. And the commonplace every day is that people treat each other really well. Honestly, it still is to this day. Like there's like how many people in this country? Like millions and millions. And most of us are nice to each other on a daily basis. And it doesn't get out because that's more commonplace than us not being nice to each other. Have you found that to be true in your travels, that people are overwhelmingly helpful and nice and supportive and so on? Is there anything you would say to push back on that?
Yeah, definitely one of the more recent events that I had using my trailer. I had decided to drive towards a mountain and I actually got lost on a forest road, which I thought would have been a good idea at the time to get onto. So I thought maybe I could find a spot to camp, but the snow just got worse and worse, and it was becoming clear that I wasn't going to be able to turn around.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting stuck in somebody's driveway. So I had to stay there the night, and it was a very frustrating moment for me, but I was able to just accept that I was stuck there and it was too dark for me to figure it out at the time. And that I was probably going to piss someone off in the morning, which is definitely what ended up happening. I think right before 7, someone came up with their truck. First I saw their headlights and then they honked. And I prepared myself mentally. I said, okay, I'm waking up and I'm going to put on a good face for these people and just hope that I don't piss them off anymore with how I talk to them. So I came out of my trailer and walked towards the truck, and there was just a woman sitting there in the driver's seat. She I think instantly started to, I think I started to say something as I was walking towards her. I instantly started to explain, like, I am so sorry. I am stuck in your driveway.
Yeah.
She said, oh, clearly. And she was really pissed for the first few minutes, you know, seeing the whole thing. But she first offered a shovel, which was great, and then said that that she said that we probably definitely needed to get a tow truck. So she offered to let me come back to her cabin.
You're fine.
So that I could use her Wi-Fi and have reception, because on top of all of this, I didn't have reception while I was out there. So I started calling a tow truck, but we managed to shovel it out and just keep building more ruts to kind of get the car finally away from the trailer. And maybe about the third time that we had done that, another neighbor came up, and this guy had a lot of energy. He started talking to the first neighbor and then was talking to me a lot. And my boyfriend that was with me was wearing a Feel the Burn sweatshirt, which I wasn't thinking about at the time, but he brought it up later that this guy might have started talking a lot of politics, maybe because he saw the sweatshirt of my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Maybe it kind of stirred up his need to talk about it while helping us out of there. But, you know, it really didn't matter. He was just sort of talking as it was. And, you know, we thanked him, obviously, and we were able to get out of there. So that was a success story. And the first neighbor, you know, she ended up being really nice about it. And, you know, although that we ruined her plans really for the whole morning, she didn't seem like completely upset with us by the time it was all over. I think we were all just relieved that we were able to get out of there in that amount of time without the tow truck, mind you. So
Power of the Subi, I guess.
Sorry, what?
Power of the Subi.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That thing is a beast. It's time to get all of her tires changed too, because that Subaru has seen a lot.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
So a couple of things I want to hone in on that, you know, I personally am curious about. How after seeing all of this nature that you've seen through, how many parks do you think you visited? Like state parks, including national parks, and like, you know, just local places, you know, like county
All of them
parks.
combined,
Yeah. How many
as
do you
far,
think?
oh my God, it's gotta be like in the high 30s,
Wow.
maybe close to 50 range. I mean, even especially just driving through them, because I was always trying to take the scenic route. It's funny, rather than going to the southern part of the Grand Canyon, the southern rim, I decided to go all the way around it. So
Wow.
that alone, was a few different parts. It was beautiful seeing the canyon just from the side. Like, it was like driving through Mars. Oh my gosh. And
did you see Old Faithful at Yellowstone? Did you see Old Faithful go off?
oh yeah, of course. That's a must see. You gotta get out of your car. It was too bad that I couldn't
It was
take
like 20
Danielle with
minutes
me.
late when I saw it. So I was like, well, this isn't that Faithful. Like, what's going on? I was like 15. I was like super impatient, just sitting there watching this dude talk about how faithful this geyser was.
Yeah.
And I read in a book like a couple weeks ago how, you know, the original explorers of Yellowstone, or the original, like, you know, Western explorers. I mean, you know, people have been there for a long time. But he was talking about how like he could set his watch to it. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen for me. Does it happen for everybody? I don't understand. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Just get a little geyser alarm.
How do you feel being that close to nature? Like, how does that change your mind about the world around you? How does that change your mind about your relationship to the world around you and to the people around you, seeing everything that's out there, like the world, the beauty, the surrealness?
Well, it's funny.
Patience of it all.
You just made me think of what it's like for me to have this sort of reoccurring theme of a dream where I see a really, really good part of nature and I try to capture it on a camera. And most of the time, I'm really upset when I first wake up and realize that I don't have those actual moments documented.
Hmm.
And I think that's a funny part of the consciousness. But, ever since I started traveling and really seeing it up close and just enjoying it in the moment, I haven't been having those dreams as frequently.
Lewis and Clark didn't have a camera.
Yeah, right.
The Native Americans didn't have a camera. They just lived,
Yeah.
and it was just there.
There's just some part of our modern consciousness, or at least mine anyway, that's just kind of horrified at the thought of not having the
Yeah.
the thing captured, or
Yeah.
not every little thing, but if I were to capture it, not having the result when I expect there to be one later on.
A camera has yet to be able to match the human eye, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is the meaning behind that dream.
Yeah. In the little bit of exploring I've done, I've noticed that I come back to it. Like every time I come back to reality, as you say, every time I come back to normal life, I find myself caring less and less and less and less and less about things that absolutely do not matter. Like, I'm very introverted anyways. It's part of my personality profile, I guess you could say. I really don't care that much about a lot of things, like the Super Bowl's tonight, for example. I don't even know what's going on.
Right.
I haven't watched it. The halftime show just happened. Everybody's keep talking about. I don't care. I don't care at all.
Yeah.
But when you see the grandioseness of it, and you stand there and you're like, in your head, you're always the most important person, because we have to think that way, because our body's built to survive. Our minds are built to, use everything that our body has. So we have to think that we're super important. Otherwise, I mean, it's just like nihilism or something, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you start looking at nature and you're like, wow, I'm really just a cog in the wheel, like really, for real. I really
Well, nature is obviously very humbling in that sense, but I think even more than us, it's nature that is the humble one. But
wow,
they don't care about us.
Yeah.
The nature doesn't care about us.
Wow. I read these reports and stuff about missing people in national parks. Like when I started hiking, I was trying to like psych myself into being more careful, because I tend to be more overconfident than I should be. So I read all these reports about all these people missing. And there's always this theme of people get lost and then they get disoriented and then they make dumb decisions. Like it'll be in the middle of winter and they'll take off their clothes and stuff like that. And the more I thought about it and the more I spent out in nature, the more I realized that, we're just not out there anymore. Like if you're out there every day and you're in your element, then you understand that this is to be respected. But if you're not, and you get out there and you get scared and you get paranoid, you'll start seeing everything everywhere. I mean, there's phenomena where people see like faces in trees and all sorts of things that are just not there. People see things that aren't there in the woods all the time.
Yeah, they're meant to be able to handle it, but they can't, because it's still new to them in a sense.
Well, we've built these things for the past how many years? 500 years, 600 years?
Yeah.
So we're
the
out
great
of practice.
Unlearning.
Yeah. We haven't been out there for a while.
Yeah.
Did you experience that when you were there? Like you're out in the middle of the woods and you're by yourself. Are you freaking out? I mean, honestly, are you freaking out? Because I've been in the woods by myself in a tent and nobody else is around that I know of. And honestly, like I am so scared. I don't even know what to do with myself. Are you like that sometimes?
It's been sketchy before. I've been in a lot of spots where I didn't see exactly where I was because I didn't get there until it was super dark.
Mhm.
But I knew that I was on some sort of ATV trail or somewhere hunter's turf, especially in Idaho. That was a little scary.
Hmm.
I didn't want to be anywhere that people didn't want me.
Yeah.
But there were some really good places that I woke up to in Utah. That state is gorgeous.
Mm. So your upbringing, I know your parents. I don't know them super well, but I know your mom pretty well. I know your dad. I've met him a few times. They're pretty liberal people. They seem pretty open-minded to me, from an outsider's perspective. How would you think the way that you were raised and the way that they taught you and the way that they have encouraged you to be individualistic has helped you do something more unconventional?
I think it makes a pretty big difference that I was their first kid, because in that comes a lot of the learning process for them as far as being parents. So I'm kind of the trial baby, as pretty much any firstborn, I think, would agree that that's what it's like.
Hmm.
And especially having two younger siblings, there were just a lot of occasions where I was older and conscious enough to be observing their parenting decisions. And, just kind of having a deeper understanding that early on of, what the adults are dealing with, or at least how they're behaving. And
Hmm. Your dad's works at UVA, right? Is he a professor? Am I wrong in saying that?
No, he's not a professor. He works at the library. He's an ITE dude. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
He directed a play, by the way. I went to. It was
he's directed a
Edgar
few
Allan Poe
plays.
radio show. I went to it.
Yeah, that thing
last
was
summer.
awesome.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought
Yeah,
it was definitely interesting. I've never been to a radio show before. I was expecting a conventional play. It wasn't, but it was still very enjoyable. I
yeah,
got like
yeah,
two glasses of wine and anything is enjoyable. So,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. My dad's a writer. He's a master playwright. Went to school for it a few times over the summer.
So I mentioned I met your mom at a job we used to work together, right? We worked at World Strides, which is a traveling company. They hosted music festivals. I went with her. She was the senior person, so I basically just did whatever the heck she wanted me to do. I had no idea what was going on. Anyway, she got me through that, but she talked about you guys. Like I had I guess my son was like 3 at the time, or maybe even 2 at the time. So I was talking about my son, of course, being a new dad, and she was talking about her kids, which I guess you were early 20s at the time, or maybe even a teenager at the time. Anyway, um, fast forward a year, and she just gives up that job and becomes a rabbi, or pursues it.
Well, she starts
Pursuing it.
studying for it.
Yeah, I thought that was like super brave and just out of the blue. Like I didn't see it coming. I was like, oh, okay, that's unique.
Oh yeah. Seeing the decisions that my mom has made ever since I became an adult, essentially, has been pretty inspiring. My mom sees herself as, that she still has time in this life, which is inspiring. Neither of my parents really stressed me to go to college, but I did make the decision to go to community college. Well, they didn't pressure me to apply for a university coming out of high school. So they were very lax in that sense as I said earlier about being a kid and having this ability to watch their parenting skills at work,
Yeah.
you know, I definitely notice it now, like their development in how I see them, and I think what they do with their lives in general and who they are as people.
I was raised very, very conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very, very. You know, I mean, my parents are great people. I got nothing bad to say. But it definitely took a bit of thinking outside the box for me to do half the stuff I've done in life, because nobody around me was doing it. You know, like I came back from overseas and it was basically just me. Like my brothers were both settled. So, you know, I had to do my own thing basically and do whatever I could do. And it was like it was like a new path. Like I didn't know anybody that had done half the things I was attempting to do. And it's especially with the nature stuff and the exploring and, you know, the typically just being curious and open-minded about other people. Those aren't typically conservative qualities, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that offends people, but it's absolutely the truth. And I find it to be necessary qualities if you're going to get the full spectrum of life.
Well, it's curiosity, and it's the motivation to act on it, I think, and to want to have, to not let go of your sense of empathy, I think, is a good trait to have.
Yeah, it's something to be able to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. You know, we say it, but how many times do we implement it? How many times do we, you know, really like search to know what somebody else is going through? Not very much.
Yeah. We
know.
end up telling ourselves that it's a lot of hard work. And so is the idea of treating ourselves to what should be real life, which is seeing the world and being around nature more often. If we sort of deny ourselves certain things, I think we're a little too addicted to the dramas or the melodramas of life to make
And it's
things
easy
simple
now.
for us.
You know, I mean, I could start 15 fights just by sending one text message.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's so on edge.
Yeah. With your unique experiences, how do you expect that they will shape your mindset? Like your paradigm, like your glasses, the way you see the world. You see the world through your glasses, right? We all do. We take off our glasses. We try to put somebody else's on. It doesn't quite fit. We see the world through how we see the world. Right. How do you think that'll affect the way that you live going forward? And what you try to, the person you're trying to become?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there are a few times where I have gone back to the normal lifestyle while taking a break somewhere like I am now in Portland. And, you know, I'll question if I've unlearned or lost all of the progress that I had built while being solo. And it really is just about being in the moment. And it's hard when you want to be in a different moment. You're thinking about the past so much. But the nice thing about nature is that it's always out there. So sometimes we hope, yeah. Honestly, sometimes when I'm feeling stressed, my favorite thing to do is to visit explore.org. They have a bunch of live feed camera footage of animals doing their thing, a bunch of different sections. You can watch bears eating salmon, or you can just watch kittens playing in a room somewhere in the country, birds in their nests. You know, I think that's a good way to feel present, is to pull that up. And there are a lot of times where I have to ground myself and feel in the moment. And, you know, I would hope that it has changed my perspective, maybe in ways that I haven't become fully aware of yet. But I think the most important thing is that I've gained some confidence in my ability to pioneer and just go on. You know, if I'm so worried about the future, then I can tell myself, oh, well, I'm so good at just getting and going up that mountain, as soon as I see it. So even though it feels like there's nothing happening right now, I'm fine. Like, I'm taking a moment to do what people do when they're in reality, which is make some money. And fortunately, I'm able to do something that I love, which is walking people's dogs for them and watching them in their homes too, because I have experience in that and credibility, and I'm really good at advertising my business. And I've only been here a month, and I've been able to build clientele that has me making like $100 at least every day now.
Amazing.
Yeah,
It
it's
really
a
is
good job to
amazing.
have.
Yeah.
I really want to encourage more people to do that kind of stuff. I guess it would be called gig work, but
Yeah.
I think it makes the
Gig
most
work, yeah.
sense to, I think it's a good thing to have right now during these times. I think it's important to like not go back to working inside of a business if you're not comfortable
That's a
with
good
it. If
point.
you're
Really good point.
afraid of getting sick, or getting other people sick, which I certainly am. Although I haven't felt so much as even a cold, really. Like, I've been able to breathe through my nose since 2019 in the winter.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I feel great. My
Worked in the
body.
public through the whole friggin' pandemic.
Oh
I
my
got
gosh.
COVID twice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in early 2020.
No, I got it last year in May last year.
Oh,
And I
okay.
got it like I think I got it like 4 months ago or something like that. Yeah.
So you've gotten it since getting a vaccination?
I didn't have a chance to. When I got it in
Oh,
May, like they told me to wait, and then I got it again, and then they told me to wait. So I
yeah.
haven't even had a chance to get any of that. And now I don't even know if it's relevant because I don't know if that would help with the antibodies my body already has, whatever.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah. I mean, I should have gotten it before May. I mean, that's easy to say in hindsight, but I didn't. So now I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what the scientific word to say is, but they say if you've had it and you get it too soon, it could really mess you up. So
Really
that's what they say. I don't know.
spooky stuff.
Spooky stuff.
Yeah.
So I recently read a book. I'm going to go into my nerd phase called
Do it.
Walden by Henry David Thoreau. And he talks about it's like a classic. It's like one of those John Muir type things before John Muir, We talked about John Muir before, I think.
Yeah, we did.
He basically like lives in a cabin in the woods in the 1800s, early 1800s, and he just like finds a piece of land, builds a cabin, lives there, and talks about what his daily life is like, and talks about like the contrast between his daily life and society, right? So he just fishes, hunts, grows his own crops. He did that for like 2 years. It's fictional, of course, but he talks about how like there's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses. Even back then there was in industrial society, back in the towns in the 1800s. Now it's unbelievable. Now, I mean, if you don't have your life together at like 25, 30, then it's like, oh my goodness, what are you going to do? You're an embarrassment to everybody. Would you say you're mostly immune to that way of thinking now because of a lot of what you've done?
Yeah, I think both what I've been up to and the fact that the times are changing a little bit.
I would say you're right about that. They are, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, me
Really
too.
happy
I
about
mean, we're able to, I've noticed that more, I guess you could say more terminology has been used to label certain things when it comes to especially analyzing mental health. I think, more words are becoming more common when addressing certain issues. And when I think about that, and it's funny, I also think about phone calls that I have with my grandma or my bubby, and she definitely is putting she's passive aggressively pressuring me to buy a house, catch up with my cousins, buy a house like one of them already has, and maybe get married like another one already has. And there's definitely some pressure that comes from her, but it's a good yin and yang, and it reminds me that there actually is a large generational difference in that way of thinking. And clearly a lot less people are getting married at our age during these times. Like, there's been a massive decline.
I mean, you think about the Industrial Revolution, right? We're still
What's that?
the Industrial Revolution, basically
Yeah.
still byproducts of that. We're still
Right.
thinking like factory workers when we have the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's like, why? And a lot of us are still, if we were raised under really strict households, like you said that you were, for example, and I definitely had some thinking instilled by my dad, who was raised Catholic, so he passed along a stream of a
sure.
sort of sense of guilt. It's definitely there's a word for this genetic passing of trauma. I think it's called hereditary trauma or something. But it also shows in the parenting styles that they have, like we mentioned earlier. But anyway, it is kind of scary to think that our generations aren't working together for the future, because we still are the future, and obviously there are more to come. But right now, there are a lot of self-serving older millionaires, billionaires right now. And I'm not sure how, I'm not sure how we're ever going to make it out without there being nothing left but dust and cockroaches.
Well, I mean, I think about this sometimes, it's like people think of the passing of the torch in sports, right? Like, let's use an obvious example, like sports. Okay. Like Michael Jordan to LeBron James, pretty obvious, right? Best player of the generation. Business, life, politics doesn't work that way. You basically have to kill the old to start the new.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, these old oil guys aren't going to be like, oh yeah, let's build some electric cars. It took a dude to be like, hey, we're building these electric cars. And then what's everybody
doing? Old man.
Everybody is building electric cars now. Everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like one of these things where we still have a mindset that isn't at all consistent with our technology.
Yeah, exactly.
We still think hard work like makes us money. It's the dumbest thing of all time. It doesn't make us money. There are people on TikTok that make more money than people who've worked for 30, 40 years.
Exactly. And it's like what you and I were just mentioning before, any kind of like online streaming, there are actually ways to make money off of just, even if it's playing on Twitch.
Yeah. I mean, I literally sold a car to a guy who made money on Twitch.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. I was like, bro, how do you make money again? He's like, I play video games and I talk to my subscribers and they pay me.
That's crazy.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Explain
just for having a personality.
Again?
Yeah. There are so many opportunities. And, with my dog walking business, that happened from working for an app on my phone. And, the same thing goes with door dashers. They're working for their phones, really, at this point, working for the internet. So technology is eventually going to become our new boss or manager.
Yeah, with that comes its own challenges.
Yeah.
Especially staying grounded and connected.
Yeah, exactly. And
also,
the quarantine isn't helping.
I read a book not long ago called The Nature Fix. Florence Williams, I think, but I could have that wrong. I'll put it somewhere down there. Anyway, the whole book was about how we need to be involved in nature, and we have to go to nature to be able to ground ourselves. And it was all very scientific, had studies in it of all sorts of stuff. And to me, it was obvious because I grew up mostly in the country, like dirt road kind of things. And I was like, yeah, well, being in the woods makes you feel more calm. That makes sense. But to many, 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 many people, I mean, there are more people in New York than most of these counties combined. There are people that have never been to a national park before. There are people that have never done what you're doing. Like, most people have never done what you're doing, and that's important to
Yeah.
recognize.
Yeah,
Most
and
people don't know what that's like.
it brings me back to really wanting to, if I could do anything to change the world, it would be to help people see how important it is to get out into nature and to respect it. I mean, there are a lot of artists out there that are doing the best that they can to get people's attention, which is great. And then actual scientists too.
Yeah, and that's the craziest thing, right? There are literal scientists who are doing studies about, it's called nature deficiency or something along those lines, that they're actually naming it something. Like you would say, okay, somebody's bipolar, somebody's depressed, somebody has a nature deficiency. They got to go walk in the woods to feel better about life.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me, but it's true. It's like totally true. The people that have lived in these cities their whole lives and they've never been around a more than one tree at a time, 2 trees at a time, 4 trees at a time. Like they've never been. And as you know, most forests are like 1 or 2 trees, and that's it. The rest of them are their children.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
insane to think about. But
yeah, like those redwood trees.
yeah.
Some of the best
Oh my God.
parks have the redwood trees on the West Coast.
I gotta see them. There's so much to see inside the United States.
Yeah, exactly.
So Yellowstone, you mentioned a couple other places.
Yeah, either Bryce
other
or
highlights?
Zion would be
Zion?
number 2. I think either Bryce or Zion. It's hard to say which one would make it to number 2, but one of those two. But my favorite park at this moment would have to be Glacier National Park in Montana. And that was the most northwest that I've been so far. I haven't yet explored Washington State, which I've heard is super versatile and has all the different kinds of biodiversities that you would find in the entire United States, because you have volcanoes and deserts and mountains and beach, just everything that you can find in the United States.
Have you run into any sexism being a woman doing this?
Maybe just like a little bit of suggested sexism, like what I had mentioned earlier about that veteran guy assuming that I had someone with me. But really, no, people haven't been crude towards me. And I can't remember too many sexist comments.
Like, you shouldn't be doing this, like you're a girl or whatever. You're not allowed.
Well, I've heard a lot of like, oh, like if I were your parent, I wouldn't feel comfortable with this. But a lot of times they don't mention the fact that I'm a girl. I think I have a way of immediately giving off some masculine energy. So I think that people know that I'm pretty tough when they see me.
Interesting. Well, I hope other people find this as intriguing as I have.
Thank you.
I really do.
Yeah, I hope so too, honestly, because I want it to inspire someone to maybe try something similar, even just living inside of a car. If you don't have a pet like I do, which I didn't mention this entire time, I've got a bunny rabbit, which has come with me on these adventures. It's been a huge reason as to why I got the camper in the first place, because I wanted floor space for her. Anyway, it's actually, it's becoming pretty popular now that people my age and younger are starting to live in their cars. Maybe they can make it work if they have a cat, but I don't know about a rabbit. They're too much of a mess.
People, I mean, converting vans is huge. I mean, it's a huge market.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love the idea of doing that one day. I find someone who's really good at carpentry and can make me their apprentice. I'd love to build, oh my gosh, what I would do for a camper
Into my
that
way.
actually has a wood fire stove inside of it. That would be the best.
Okay, so that's a good segue. What are some practicalities of your trip, and what are things that you would change if you could go back to the beginning and start again, as far as practicalities like making food, staying clean, hygiene, all that good stuff? What are some things you would change along your journey, and what's some technology that you've used to
Yeah.
be able to do it efficiently?
It's funny because I don't feel that I have any regrets really as to how I made things work. I mean, maybe if I felt, it's not that I was uncomfortable with the idea of carrying around water and using my sink in my camper, but I just decided to dry camp. And it's from 1998. So it has some weird functions, and maybe some connections that I need to fix a little bit. So I didn't know, well, it's not that I didn't know, it was just a lot of work setting up the refrigerator and using that. So there are actually a few features in there that I just didn't even bother with, which, I sometimes now wonder, like, what if I had decided to spend some time maybe renovating the camper so that I would want to use those things more, fix the pressure in the sink or make the refrigerator easier to use or just more clean, I think was the biggest issue. I was worried about that thing getting moldy. So yeah, if I had spent more time before leaving Virginia making the camper or adding more amenities to it, that would have been cool, because I remember being really nervous when I first started. I felt that I didn't have a whole lot, that I had just suddenly gone from living in a house to living outside. And that's a really scary transition. And I didn't know for the first week what I was going to do as far as taking a shower. And then my friend recommended to me that I get a Planet Fitness membership, so that, because they're all over the place.
Yeah, true.
And I can go in there and take a shower. So that worked out pretty well. And honestly, yeah, I don't feel like I would change anything. I think it's great. I think the best part about this entire journey is that I don't have any regrets, really.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's
How did
great
you
to
eat?
just be able to. How did I eat? Okay.
Yeah, how did you eat? I want to know.
Okay, I honestly would have pasta most nights. When
Okay.
I finally parked, I would set up my little propane burner
Okay.
with a pot holder on it.
Was it like freeze dried or what?
I didn't have a lot of freeze dried stuff, honestly. I got a lot of my snacks, like nuts and some fruit, like bananas and things, at gas stations, because, the bananas are going to be just as good probably at a Kroger.
Yeah.
So I didn't go into grocery stores that often, and I was going to gas stations almost, 5 times a day, towing that thing around.
Yeah.
So I'd get a lot of snacks from there. And it would just be a lot of, yeah, like you said, kind of just dry food, like pastas and mac and cheese and things like that. But I really did like to have my perishables. Because I had a bunny rabbit with me, I'd like to get vegetables as often as I could and make them last for a while too. So since sometimes I would end up sleeping in Walmart, I would just buy a bunch of produce from there.
What do you think your next adventures are? Have you thought about that? I know you're gonna go after being a park ranger or, game warden or whatever, but
yeah, I'm thinking I'm pretty close to applying for the job that I want in a Glacier National Park, but I do want to explore Washington State. Like I said, I just need to check that off my list. It sounds too good to pass up. And, I feel like I have all the time in the world, really. And I'm studying while I'm on the road too. I already got a certification in forestry management and wildlife conservation. And right now, just to get it under my belt, I'm studying criminal justice in case I do want to pursue being a game warden after being a forest ranger for a few years. Because that's what I'd like to be doing, is stopping hunters from breaking all of the rules wherever I end up settling down, which might be somewhere in cowboy country, Montana.
You're going to be Mononoke with those big old wolves.
Yeah,
After the
exactly.
industrial man or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So Washington's going to be your next exploration spot. Are you going to do the same? Do you see yourself backpacking at all at any point? Like, do you have any ambitions to go backpacking anywhere?
Now that I've made some friends and have become familiar even with some apps that are designed for hikers that want to meet up, I would definitely look into that, because I really want to be on foot and camp around and backpack with some people in Washington, I think.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
I've always done things like that alone, and I've tried to do it with other people. It's never the same.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But everybody's different. I tend to gravitate more towards singular activities like running and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it again, it's like it's a difference in, I'm like 220 pounds, like
yeah,
it's a difference in the approach. But also, like, I'm like not very physical at all. I'm pretty slow.
Who's gonna want to mess with you?
Yeah, like, having to keep up with some 150-pound dude with a 20-pound backpack doesn't sound like my kind of day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
The most I've hiked in a day is like 22, 23 miles, but that was like, I couldn't do that multiple days at a time. The most singular at a time I could hike is like 15 miles a day.
Yeah, gotta go your own pace.
Yeah, and that was enough for me to, like, really max out my physical potential, I guess.
Yeah, I think I will do a lot of backpacking, especially on my own too, once I'm settled somewhere in Montana, because one of the biggest reasons, another big reason why I haven't gone hiking or backpacking by myself, is because I have the bunny rabbit.
Yeah.
I don't want to even leave her alone in the camper if I go out for like a week,
Yeah, makes sense. Well, that's awesome. Like, your adventure is quite unique. I remember selling you the Outback, and you were telling me what you were going to do with it, and I was like, that's crazy.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy to me.
I remember when it really all just came to me, and my mom was on the phone with me that night, and I told her, you know what, I'm through living in this house. Like, I'm just gonna buy a camper and get out of here. Her response at first was like, you're not making any sense right now.
Right.
But I was just, it was like an emotional decision at the time. Like, I'm just so sick of being in this hometown, and now this COVID quarantine has made it even harder to live here. Like, I've got to go explore while I still can.
Odd question.
I'm not working. Yeah.
What do you know your personality type? Like, are you extroverted, introverted?
I'm definitely an introverted person for the most part.
I mean, that explains how you could go across country by yourself, essentially.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really need company, it felt like, the entire time. I mean, it would have been nice maybe, because I was, working out a lot of thoughts in my head that would have been nice to have an outer perspective. But I was listening to audiobooks of like Ram Dass and Alan Watts and stuff, and just
Okay.
stuff that's easy to meditate to and realize how small your problems really are, because that always seems to be the most desired topic of conversation when you're with someone, is to just vent about your melodramas.
Yeah. And it's like you say, you see Yellowstone, and all of a sudden it's like my little whatever I'm trying to achieve that I haven't done yet is not that important anymore.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't even matter if I take a really good picture of this moment or not. It's in here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
phenomenal. Is there anything you would like to add? Is there anything else you would like to say? Is there an adventure coming up that you would like to plug in?
Yeah.
Anything of that nature?
Well, if I could just give advice to anyone, it would be to just, live your life the way that you want to, and to remind yourself that it doesn't have to be the way that everyone else lives. That's like probably what I strive for, really, is to just live exactly how I want to live, and to make not only my present self happy, but who I was as a child happy. People talk a lot lately about healing their inner child. And I've noticed that this has been a lot of that, and that's a really big part of seeing not only the bigger picture of how the world works, but also the bigger picture of who you feel yourself to be.
It's amazing how when we're kids, everything is wonderment. Everything is amazing. Everything is exciting. My son is 7.
Missed that.
And when he gets bored, things go downhill real quick. Honestly.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's when he just starts destroying everything and screaming. It's like when he's engaged in something, like nothing can stop him. Everything is amazing. Everything is exciting. Like,
yeah,
he'll come up and hug me at random times, and I'm like, oh my God, life is amazing. But it's like, I think that a lot of adults are bored out of their minds in in this century of, honestly, like unprecedented comfort in the history of mankind. People are, you would think you would want, all the food, all the clothes, all the people around you, all the love, so on, so on, so on. When you get it, you start to go crazy because there's nothing else to get. There's nothing.
Yeah,
else.
exactly. It's kind of like
is to try to be one of those crazy billionaires, and like, okay, so you get there and you realize it's not about that anymore. I heard somebody say, I think it was Jim Carrey, actually.
Yeah.
Talk about the 90s.
The best things.
He was like, I hope everybody gets their dream so that they realize it's not about that. I hope they get all the money they want, all the happiness they want, so they realize that's not what life is all about.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to think about. And I think that a lot of the problems people have in society, particularly, like not personally, not within themselves, but society, it creates problems in the sense of boredom. People are bored out of their minds. They get up, they go to the same job, they do the same thing, they think about the same thing, they meet the same people. There's hardly any new input of information. And if it is, it's not philosophical, it's fact-based. So, okay, a tornado happened in Chile, or the stock market went down 2 points or whatever. That's not challenging you to contemplate your life. That's just facts.
Yeah, that's just events.
Yeah, you feel people with facts, that doesn't necessarily challenge them as people.
Yeah.
And nature makes you contemplate life, because you're like, wait, you mean this exists? Like, this mountain has been here for how long? This glacier's been here for how long? This tree has been here for how long? Like, longer than
and that just snowballs all these ideas.
My great granddad has been here. This tree's been here. Wait,
right.
I have to reassess everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's something modern life doesn't give us.
Yeah, it's world expanding. I mean, just the fact that you're able to go to that time and place while you're out there just staring at a tree. It's beautiful. It's magic.
Yeah, people got to do it. Like you said, if they don't do it, they won't know. Like,
Yeah.
people go to the beach for the same reason. You stare at the ocean. What do you think the ocean does to you? You know, it's this unfathomable force that you can't wrap your mind around. And it makes you feel soothing, yet at the same time small. And in feeling small, you're kind of comforted in that because your problems are reduced.
Yeah, exactly. It makes me think of a saying from a recent Disney film, the Pixar film Soul. Have you seen that before?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Oh, it's a good one. You should watch
The other day,
that.
I was attempting to watch I think it's a Mexican one or something that they came out with a little girl. Somebody
I know the one, but I
fell
haven't
asleep
seen
like
it.
15 minutes into it, not because it was bad, but because I was really tired. Anyway, I tried to watch it, but anyway, but I haven't seen Soul yet. I've heard tell it's really, really good.
Oh, it's a good one. One of the quotes from that film that I really like, there's a character explaining to the main character, she's telling him a story. And she says, so there's a fish swimming around in the ocean, and it goes up to a larger fish, and it says, I want to see the ocean. And the larger fish says to the smaller one, well, you're in the ocean. And the smaller one says, this isn't the ocean. This is just water.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes deeper than that, I think. I think I misquoted it a little bit.
Well, I mean, sounds pretty profound to me.
Yeah.
It's really true. You think about all the times in history that we've documented. Our lifetime, we're only a few years apart, me and you. Like, our lifetime is pretty profound. Like, COVID will be recorded for the rest of humanity. I don't know, maybe like the plague or something, like the Black Plague or whatever. But
Definitely
I mean,
historical.
You think about our rise in technology since just I was a kid and having a computer that was like literally that big, and to being able to record this on a laptop that's literally that thin. Like, it definitely affects us. And anytime we can go back to our roots and we can revisit who we were, it's always a good thing. Like, it's always a good thing, because we will
absolutely
lose perspective. And you see that happen a lot. People lose perspective in daily life.
Yeah.
Just like you were saying, their problems, they become huge because they don't have perspective.
Yeah, it's hard. But people, they need to just realize and take a step back and realize that there are other ways to view it. It's just like trying to look at your reflection in boiling water,
That's a great way to think about it. Did you read that somewhere?
I did read that somewhere earlier today. I was like, oh, I like that one.
That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you talking about all this. I hope other people find it very inspirational. I know I have.
Thank you. I hope so too, and I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Well, I will let you go. Enjoy whatever's left of the Super Bowl. I have no idea.
Woo!
Yeah, I don't care.
Football.
Probably over by now.
Probably.
I have a Dolphins
like
jacket. I root for them. I'm from Florida, so. But other than that,
Dolphins.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hey, Maxi, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And, thank you, Tony.
We'll talk soon.
All right. Let's talk soon.
Bye.